The cargo hauler sat in Dock 47 of the Meridian Station, her hull scarred from decades of service. She was a beast of a ship, twice the size of standard freight vessels, with engines that could pull loads most captains wouldn't dare attempt. Her name was the Ironbound, and she had been magnificent once. Now she was just old. Too big, the Vexian auctioneer chirped, his forearms gesturing dismissively at the holographic display. Burns fuel like a dying star. Maintenance costs would bankrupt a small colony. No practical use in modern commerce. The assembled crowd of potential buyers murmured agreement. In an age of sleek, efficient vessels optimized for profit margins, the Ironbound was a relic. She belonged in a scrapyard, not a dock. Current bid stands at 40,000 credits, the auctioneer announced. Scrap value alone. Do I hear 45? Silence filled the auction hall. Going once. Going twice. 200,000. Every head turned toward the back of the room. A human stood there, tall and broad-shouldered, with graying hair and eyes that held the kind of confidence that came from surviving things others hadn't. His name was Marcus Webb, and he wore the weathered jacket of someone who spent more time in space than on planets. The auctioneer's mandibles clicked in confusion. Sir, I believe you misheard. The current bid is 40,000 for scrap value. The ship is not considered operational for standard commerce. I heard you fine, Marcus said, walking down the aisle. 200,000 credits. And she's plenty operational. A Drexian merchant in the front row turned, his scaled face twisted in amusement. Human, that ship is 50 years past her prime. The fuel costs alone would consume any profit. You would be better off lighting your credits on fire. Marcus stopped beside the Drexian and smiled. That's the thing about humans. We don't always do what's better. Sometimes we do what's right. He transferred the credits before anyone could outbid him. The Ironbound was his. 3 days later, Marcus stood in the ship's cavernous cargo bay, running his hand along the reinforced bulkheads. The previous owners had neglected her, but the bones were solid. The structure was sound. You're beautiful, he whispered. His crew thought he was insane. All 2 of them. Captain, the power consumption readings are off the charts, said Rena, his engineer. She was a Quillix, small and furred, with 6 fingers that could fix anything mechanical. We could run 3 normal freighters on what this ship drinks for breakfast. Then we'll need bigger jobs, Marcus replied. His pilot, a lanky Terra named Jack, leaned against a support beam. Boss, nobody hires ships this size anymore. The corporations have automated everything. We're going to go broke. Marcus looked up at the cathedral-like space above them. No, we won't, because we're not going after corporate jobs. He pulled up his datapad and showed them a message. It was from a colony world called Haven's Rest, far out on the frontier. The text was simple and desperate. Please, anyone, we need help. The supply ships won't come anymore. They say we're too remote, too unprofitable. We have children here. We have elderly. We're dying slowly. If someone doesn't help us, Haven's Rest will become a grave. Rena's whiskers twitched. Captain, that's 3 months' travel. The fuel costs would be enormous. And they probably can't pay. Probably can't, Marcus agreed. But they need help. And we have a ship that can carry enough supplies to keep them alive for years. Jack ran a hand through his hair. You really are crazy. Crazy enough to buy this ship, Marcus said. Might as well go all the way. They loaded the Ironbound with everything Haven's Rest would need. Medical supplies, farming equipment, water purifiers, building materials, solar panels. Marcus liquidated his savings, called in favors, and convinced suppliers to extend credit based on nothing but his word. The ship groaned under the weight. Any normal freighter would have buckled. The Ironbound barely noticed Dot as they prepared to depart, a galactic commerce official appeared on the dock. He was Ascension, tall and thin, with the kind of bureaucratic sneer that transcended species. "Captain Webb, I must inform you that this venture is economically unsound. Haven's Rest has been classified as a failing colony. No major shipping company will service them because the profit margins are negative. You will bankrupt yourself. Marcus sealed the cargo bay doors. Then I'll be bankrupt. But those people will be alive. This is why humans will never achieve true economic efficiency," the official said, shaking his head. "You let emotion override logic." "Yeah," Marcus said, climbing the ramp. "We're terrible that way." The journey to Haven's Rest took 14 weeks. The Ironbound burned through fuel at a rate that made Rena wince every time she checked the gauges. But the engines never faltered. The ship had been built for endurance, and she proved it with every parsec dot they passed through regions where pirates operated. The Ironbound's size alone discouraged most attackers. The few who were foolish enough to approach found that Marcus had installed enough defensive systems to turn the freighter into a fortress. "She's not just big," Jack said after they drove off a raiding party. "She's mean." "She's perfect," Marcus corrected. When they finally reached Haven's Rest, the colony was worse than the message had suggested. 2,000 people living in prefab domes, their supplies dwindling, their hope nearly gone. Children with hollow eyes. Adults who had stopped planning for tomorrow because tomorrow looked too bleak. The Ironbound descended through the atmosphere like a mountain falling from the sky. She was never meant to land on planets, but Marcus found a reinforced landing pad at the old mining facility and set her down with a grace that belied her size. The colonists gathered. Staring up at the massive ship, Marcus opened the cargo bay doors. "We brought supplies," he announced over the external speakers. "Enough for 2 years, maybe 3 if you're careful. Medicine, equipment, food, everything you need." The colony administrator, a woman named Kira, approached with tears streaming down her face. "We can't pay you. We have nothing." "I know," Marcus said. "Consider it a gift from people who remember what it's like to struggle." They spent 2 weeks unloading and helping the colonists set up new systems. Rena showed them how to maintain the equipment. Jack helped repair their communication array. Marcus worked alongside everyone else, hauling crates and assembling solar panels. Word spread through the frontier. Other colonies, other settlements that the corporations had abandoned, began sending messages. They needed help too. Marcus looked at his crew. "What do you think?" Rena's ears perked up. "The ship can handle it." Jack grinned. "I didn't sign up for a normal freighter job anyway." The Ironbound became a legend on the frontier. She went where the profitable ships wouldn't go. She carried loads that would have crushed lesser vessels. She brought hope to places the galaxy had forgotten. Marcus took only enough payment to cover fuel and basic expenses. Sometimes he took payment in trade goods. Sometimes he took nothing at all. The Ironbound didn't need to be profitable. She just needed to fly. Other humans heard about what Marcus was doing. They volunteered, offering their ships, their skills, their time. A network formed. Captains helping colonies, colonies helping each other. The corporations watched with confusion, unable to understand the economic model. There wasn't an economic model. There was just humans being human. 5 years after Marcus bought the Ironbound, a galactic commerce delegation arrived at Meridian Station to study the phenomenon. They wanted to understand how the frontier colonies had stabilized without corporate investment. They interviewed Marcus in the station's observation deck, the Ironbound visible through the viewport, loading supplies for another run. "Captain Webb, our analysts cannot explain your success," the lead delegate said. "By every standard metric, your operation should have failed within months. Instead, you have inspired a movement that has revitalized dozens of colonies. How? Marcus looked out at his ship. She was scarred, patched, held together with welds and determination. She was beautiful. You looked at her and saw a ship too big for profit, he said. I looked at her and saw a ship big enough for purpose. That's the difference between your species and mine. You optimize for efficiency. We optimize for meaning. But meaning does not generate revenue. No, Marcus agreed. It generates something better. It generates reasons to keep going when the numbers say quit. It generates communities that take care of each other. It generates hope. He turned to face the delegates. You deemed her too big for your usual purpose. You were going to scrap her, melt her down, erase everything she could have been. But she wasn't too big. Your purpose was too small. The delegates had no response to that thought. Marcus returned to the Ironbound. Rena had the engines running, their deep thrum vibrating through the deck plates. Jack had their course plotted to 3 different colonies that needed help. Ready, Captain? Rena asked. Marcus patted the bulkhead affectionately. What do you say, girl? Ready for another run? The ship's systems hummed in response, steady and strong. They lifted off from Meridian Station, the Ironbound rising into the black with the ponderous grace of something that knew exactly what it was meant to do. She was too big for profit, too old for efficiency, too expensive for logic, but she was exactly the right size for carrying hope to places that needed it most. And that, Marcus thought as the stars stretched before them, was the most human purpose of all.